Time has come once again to speak as witches and wizards do. I'm Daniel,
I'm Michaela Gaffinstone.
and we're your hosts for the Think Like a Wizard podcast. Welcome to season 4, episode 12. Awooooo! And that's, in case you're wondering why that's the title, it's because we have a grandfather wolf producing the episode. And that's the title he wanted. So I'm going to kind of give the people a little bit of an introduction to Grandfather Wolf here. Grandfather Wolf is the spirit that showed up to me like about a week or two ago and is helping me with earth magic. And it's kind of an interesting story because I think Grandfather Wolf has been around for so long, but hasn't been talking to anyone for so long that he forgot what a wolf looked like. Because when I first encountered him, you know, when you watch a horror movie, especially modern ones with the computer graphics and stuff like that, so you see the nightmare creature and it's kind of like not completely worked out. It's kind of like dark and it's kind of just changing, you know, and being ambiguous. Well, that was when he first showed up. Like for a second, I was like, what the hell am I looking at here? And then it kind of resolved into a wolf. Plus, the other wolf spirit that's working with me also was kind of like, yeah, no, don't worry. That's fine. That's a wolf spirit. Don't worry about it. But I was like, ugh, I don't know. That looks like a wolf that doesn't know what a wolf is. But so that's my brief
Okay.
introduction. But he's an ancient wolf spirit who's been around for a long time, and I don't think he goes into the too much with human beings anymore.
Well, I can understand that.
Yeah. So it took him a second to realize what wolves are from a human perspective.
Very cool.
All right. And so that's why the episode was the way, that's why we started the way we did. It's not why I messed up in the beginning and paused for a little bit longer than I needed to, but that's what this episode's about. So I have no idea what we're talking about today, but we did talk a little bit before the episode, and we're going to share that stuff. So one, an extra value to knowing yourself, being true to yourself, and loving yourself is that it's the ability to identify when something is flowing honestly, because you know what it feels like flowing through you. So when you're dealing with someone else or you're dealing with a spirit, because we did say spirits present to you in a metaphor. So then you might ask yourself, well, then how do I know I'm talking with the same spirit all the time, or am I even talking to a spirit that means me well? Well, you know how you feel, you know how the energy feels going through you. So you start to look at how energy flows through something that's talking with you or discussing with you or interacting with you. And if it's different from that feeling that you get when you're being purely yourself and honestly yourself, that gives you kind of a template to go by when seeing the honesty and the truth and other things. That's
And
my
I would say, from a human design perspective, it's all about tuning in to your intuition. We all have one, and we're typically taught not to pay attention to it as kids because it's something that's unseen. It's something that nobody else is in touch with. They're not in touch with your intuition, only you are. And so parents, teachers, other adults, they don't want you following your intuition because they have no idea what you're going to do next. And that, as we've discussed before, the unknown unnerves people. They don't like it, especially when it comes to adults with kids. Like, they just don't want you to do that. So you stop listening to your intuition. But when you learn to pay attention to it again, you'll find that whether it's spiritual or physical, if it's off. You do. You just have to trust yourself.
right.
And that's part of being true to yourself. Excuse my very grumpy dog.
Mm.
He's being mean to his blind sister.
Uh,
Quite the household.
mm-hmm.
Anyway, yeah. So being true to yourself means trusting yourself and
Right.
trusting your intuition.
Well, yeah. This actually kind of expands things into a whole other level because just because someone is being dishonest doesn't mean they're trying to mislead you. And I know that sounds like a weird thing, but we all hide things about ourselves, and some of us are better at it than others. So sometimes we don't want people to see things about ourselves. It doesn't mean we don't want to interact with you. It doesn't mean we don't otherwise want to have a genuine interaction. It's just that it's the fear of people knowing who you are and disliking you or hating you. So you kind of do your best to kind of hide that part of you. So it's not that you're trying to do a bad thing, but you're also well, but you're also not letting the person have a full, genuine interaction out of fear.
And again, that would be a trust issue too, right? Because if you're being honest and vulnerable and open about who and how you are, how do you know the other person's going to, unless
Right.
they already have? So you're still back to trusting your intuition, paying attention, and sometimes it's just not the right time.
Right.
Sometimes you can be honest, but not now.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like save it for a little bit because later it'll be fine to say, and right now it isn't.
Right.
And that's a question of timing, which again is being in tune with yourself and how you interact with your environment. And if you're working in magic or you're working in spiritual things, timing is everything, right? Timing really is important.
Yeah. Like you pretty much covered, but the reason I brought it up, right, is because like I don't want people turning someone away just because. Okay. All right. We had a little pause there for dog related issues. So where were we? Oh, yeah. So, yeah, even though you feel a dishonesty coming from someone, it doesn't mean they have ill intent. It just means that necessarily that they're not ready to tell the truth at the time. So even though you pick it up, don't automatically assume there's malicious intent behind it. But do look for it and do look for the malicious intent. Like, not telling you let your guard down for no, for and just because, but just
Well,
know
again,
that.
if you know somebody's lying, or if you know they're hiding something, you can tell, then that's a notice to you to be aware
Hmm.
and to pay attention. And again, spiritual or physical field doesn't matter. It's a caution sign, right? If that person is holding something back, then the question, of course, is what is it? So be prepared for something to come up at some point and try not to judge it before it gets there because it might not be a bad thing, but it might be. So you got to be aware, just apply a little sensible caution. But it doesn't mean stop, run away. It just means, all right, I need to pay extra special attention in this corner.
You know what? Spirits are getting way too comfortable with stepping into my body.
Oh, you let them.
I do. I do. All right. So he gave me a vision kind of a primordial forest. There was some mist. There's a lot of big trees. And now he's going, yeah. And I'm like, thanks. Where do we go with a primordial forest? Like, okay, so I'll say this, and maybe this will lead into something, because this is what I was thinking at the time. So this week, I ended up doing a blessing for my mother. I say me, I was actually, this is how it goes. Got up, was doing my stuff, and then I got the compulsion to go out, take my tarot cards with me, go do a reading while I'm out and about. And basically, the cards led to, what was it, the Four of Pentacles? No, the Six of Pentacles, the Eight of Wands, and I don't remember what the third card was, but the third card is just a kind of a mindset to keep. But basically, those two basically made me think of, oh, so I'm doing something for someone because the Six of Pentacles, you have an abundance, it's time to share with everyone, and the Eight of Wands is you have an abundance of energy, it's time to do things. So I'm like, all right. So, and then once again, right, the Earth, that was the thing I was always missing because I was looking at the Pentacles and thinking material gain, but I wasn't thinking of Earth magic. So I ended up doing a blessing for my mother. It took about 24 hours to do. like some energy to build up and then to do it and then let it sit and settle for 24 hours. And then I actually ended up doing one for my dad. This one didn't take as long though. Because I figured, well, my mom got one, I might as well give one to my dad. But they're like, well, your dad doesn't really need one. He's got his second shot at life, new family, all that kind of stuff. So he got a chance to do his thing over again, his parenting over again. I'm like, yeah, but he's still my dad. At the end, no matter how much trash I talk, I'm still filial. People are familiar with that term, meaning the duty that a child owes to their parents, or the perceived
Mm,
duty of a child to their parents.
mm.
Yeah,
That's a topic up for debate, honestly.
yeah, yeah.
Um, it's it's funny that you mention that because that kind of sets me off on a little path there. Rightly or wrongly, I don't know. We'll find out. But the thought that, you have to follow family or
Mm-hmm.
be filial no matter
Mm-hmm.
what. And I hotly dispute this. I hotly dispute this because sometimes your family just aren't there for you. They're just
They're not.
not good people or they're not good for you. And they can be all those things. And it doesn't matter why. What matters is that that's how they are with you. Therefore, you don't actually owe them anything. My viewpoint, and I'm a mother, right? So
Mm-hmm.
I get what I'm
Seeing this as a
saying here.
parent. Yeah.
This is as a parent, but you are the one that decided to have a child.
Right.
The child did not get to choose that. Now, okay, we go into spiritual things here where you've got your
Oh, not
soul
even that one. There's
contracts.
actually another argument.
Well, we
The
get there
argument
in a
is,
second.
yeah,
Hang on, let's get there in a
yeah,
second. But you can have the whole, well, you chose to come here, you chose these parents. Okay, but you didn't necessarily choose them forever.
right.
You chose them to give you a set of circumstances to follow a path of learning. That
Mm-hmm.
doesn't mean you have to be endlessly
Right.
filial. Now,
Mm-hmm.
I think that's going to develop into something later in this
Mm-hmm.
conversation, and I'm not sure what, but I feel very strongly about it because sometimes people don't earn that respect that they demand. And I think if you're going to be a decent parent and you're going to show up the best way you can, then that's fair enough. But sometimes people don't bother,
Mm-hmm.
and that's not okay. So that's my 10 cents worth on that. Now, what's the other
Oh,
direction you would
so
go
the
in?
other argument, was that it's true that your parents decided to have you, but the argument is of all the millions of sperm that were trying to fertilize the egg, yours did it. So you actually competed and tried to win. So you also chose to be here. But I would argue sperm is actually really just a kind of a, well, it doesn't have any sensors and stuff like that. It's just basically got a tail that spins and it moves it forward. And if it makes it to the right place, it makes it to the right place.
Yeah, I
But the
was going to
joke
say
is
that,
that you tried hard to get here, so don't tell me you didn't choose. But yeah,
yeah, no, that implies sentience. And I
yeah,
think we can fairly safely
yeah.
say that
Sperms
that
aren't.
is not a thing. So, yeah,
Yeah,
no, I'm holding to what I say. And I think where that needs to go, what I'm getting a download of now anyway, is that stuckness, sunk
mm-hmm.
cost, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
well, I've already invested this
Yeah,
much in this, therefore I'm gonna stay there, or therefore I'm gonna keep doing this, or you get stuck. That can apply in so many places. It can apply in how you do your magic. You focused in on, I gotta do it this way, I gotta do it this way. And even though it's not working for you, you're a slave to that process because at one point you decided that that was the only way to do it.
right,
And I think we get stuck in those ruts of, well, this is it, this is what I do, because there's a number of things at play, but one of them is, well, if you say to yourself, oh, I got that wrong, or oh, maybe that's not the best way. Now you have to revisit and review everything you thought was true. And
right,
human beings are not very comfortable with that. And now, if you step into the spiritual world with this issue,
right,
it's an even bigger one because you're already going into a sort of unknown, not tangible, in that you can't reach out and touch
right.
something. You can certainly get some tangible effects, but
Mm-hmm.
that's a whole other ballgame. But you're already taking this big step into the unknown, and then to be open to changing your practice, changing your direction, changing your mind. All of those things require flexibility of thought and not being stuck with, well, these are my parents, therefore I'm
Right.
stuck there. This is my sibling, therefore I'm stuck there. This is my social group. This is,
Right.
my religion, or whatever it is you're going to pick on that you identify heavily with. Wherever that heavy identification is, can also be stuckness.
Yes. Yeah. I would say I look at my relationship with my parents from the perspective of like as an adult when people started seeing the benefits of me developing the way I did, I would get apologies like I'm sorry we did what we did. And I'm like, well, as firstly, you never stood a chance. You were up against a trickster. You had no idea. You never and your life experience before having me, there was nothing that would have prepared you to deal with someone being taught by a trickster, all the things that come with it. So I'm like, I kind of by my nature, I cut you slack because yes, did I like it? No, but in the end, I had a roof over my head. I had food to eat. Like, I wasn't like starving anywhere, and it was not like I was being beaten every day. It was just, unpleasant. But like I said, in the end, you guys didn't have a chance because you didn't have the background, you didn't have the understanding. There was no way that you could have done different than what you did. So,
Well, one of my favorite sayings is that I firmly believe no one wakes up in the morning and says,
right.
"Hey, I'm going to make really shitty decisions today." Right? Like, I don't think people do that. They believe that the decisions they're making are the best ones.
Yes.
The problem comes in when it's the only way you can do something. I'm really getting this sense of um, being stuck in a rut,
Mm-hmm.
being forced along one flow. And I think when you mentioned in the beginning, how do you know if it's harmful or helpful
Right.
spirit? Well, you're not going to see very clearly if you're in a trench somewhere, right? Like if you're stuck in a certain process, all kinds of negative influences can come in and take advantage of that.
Okay. I'll share this. Okay.
That was it.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say, because see, when the first thing that, the primordial forest vision, and then after you said what you said, it was followed up by now going deep underground into basically the underworld, but it was all dark, you know, so being trapped underground. So, yeah, so you kind of covered on that too, because he's
Mhm.
feeding me visions. He's not saying anything, he's not pushing anything. He's just saying, here's the imagery, make of it what you will. Here's the imagery, make of it what you will. And you've been doing pretty good.
Well, thanks.
So, yeah. Now there's a river in a valley, and he's laughing to
Yeah, and for me, a river, it's a well-worn metaphor, I think. Life is
him.
like a river, da da da.
Yeah.
But kind of is in that a river flows. And
Hmm.
if it gets blocked up, you got a big problem because now there's going to be flooding and stuff, right? So a river, when it's doing its natural thing, is the most easy thing in the world. It just goes where it's supposed to go, and there's no struggle, right? And when you try and go against that flow, you get
Yeah.
struggle. And if you're really fighting against the flow, that fight can become more consuming and you miss the other things around you. Like you could just get out of the river and go onto the riverbank. Think about it for a minute, right? You
Mm.
could take a break, or you could just say, never mind, I'll just go with the flow for a bit. Like you have options, but it's hard to
Mm.
see it when you're struggling and when you're pushing against the thing that's a natural flow for you.
Yeah. Well,
So,
that's what he's showing me because he's
sorry?
showing himself. He's showing himself in the river, and trying to go against the river, and what a struggle it is. So, so I guess I'm assuming
It's,
he's feeding you stuff too. So,
it's exhausting if you keep fighting against the tide, right? If you keep fighting
yeah.
against the flow, then you're pushing against something that doesn't care. It doesn't care that you're pushing, it's just
Right.
there doing its thing. and it's not going to stop because you're trying to change it.
Right.
So, you know, going with that flow gives you more availability to be aware and tap into that intuition and really sort of assess your surroundings and everything that's in it. Like, is that thing that you've always been afraid of? Is it really
Right.
scary? Or is it
Well, you know
something that
what?
you heard when you were like
No,
4?
hold on a second. So you know what imagery I'm getting now?
Go on.
Scary nighttime woods.
Uh-huh. There you go. And that's exactly it, right? And why are we scared of woods in the nighttime? Typically, or at least historically, it's been because little kids are told fairy stories that inevitably end with somebody, oh, even a witch, in the
Mm,
woods eating little children, right?
yeah.
And the fairy stories, I've always been fascinated by fairy stories because there's a lot of really cool mythology in there,
Mm,
but there's also the reason behind it is interesting. And typically, like the German fairy tales,
mm,
Brothers Grimm,
yeah.
Hans Christian Andersen, all of those, where, you know, kids are inevitably eaten or
Yeah.
spirited away in some way.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, those ones were created for people who had to go and work in the fields for 12, 18 hours and they couldn't do anything with their kids. So they'd scare the living daylights out of the kids so they wouldn't leave home,
Right.
right? They could stay safe in the house, relatively speaking.
Yeah.
And that was the purpose. But there's a lot of, so it gets into your psyche, right? That,
Right.
ooh, dark woods, bad.
Mm.
But is it? And how many times do we examine that, really? What's the dark woods for you, person listening? What is your dark woods? What's your fear? And why? And is it really?
Mm. Okay. Now I'm curious to see where this one goes because he's hunting a rabbit in this vision. Not quite like pouncing on it, but like staring it down.
Hmm.
And now he's laughing to himself because we're trying to figure it out.
Yeah, nothing's coming to me for that one, gotta say.
So there's growling, and the rabbit is like, when the prey won't keep their eyes off the predator, but they're kind of shrunk into themselves.
Uh-huh. Maybe this is a facing your fears kind of thing.
Is it?
I don't know.
Um,
I can't I can't quite tell.
I'm getting a not really. So there's probably some
Mm.
element of it in there. I've never had a purely visual programming of this show.
Mm.
They've either used
Unlikely to
spoken
have
in
a wolf.
weird. Yeah. Well, like I said, this is a wolf that hasn't interacted with human beings in a long time.
Right. And apparently a wolf with a sense of humor too.
Oh, absolutely. He's laughing. He finds it funny.
Hmm.
But the hunting of the rabbit, because the rabbit can bolt at any time because the rabbit is in that kind of position where the hind legs are up. It's because it's like it's pushed back, but it's basically tight like a spring, right? So it could spring off at any time, but it doesn't know where to go because the wolf is in front and it's kind of,
Mesmerized.
yeah, it doesn't want to look away because it's afraid if it takes its eyes off the wolf will get it.
Hmm. Mm. I think there's something in that
Yeah.
for fitting in with what we're talking about today. For the listener, I have to tell you, we're both just going intuitively with
Hmm.
what's coming up, and it's not planned. And normally one of us is planned. One of us has an idea, and it's not me. So,
Well, and it's
but
not, I
today
don't actually
neither
have
of
one
us do.
either. For this one, I don't actually either.
Yeah, which is kind of fun. So we don't know where this is going to go, but as things come up, just you can always yell at the podcast and tell us what you think we're
Yeah.
missing,
But I will
because that can
say,
happen.
whatever this is, it's all primordial. It's all like whatever you take from this podcast, it's about the deepest, most primitive part of you. Well, I want to say primordial, the part that still connects to your ancestors, going all the way back to the beginning of humanity, even probably mammals.
It is your intuition, you know.
Yeah.
That's exactly what that is. It's the oldest chakra, it's the
Yeah.
oldest center in your human design, and the intuition is the thing that keeps you aware and afraid when you need to be
Mhm.
and responding very quickly. And it's the most present sense you have.
Right.
It's like it's right now. It's not telling you, oh, you know what, in 2 days' time, you are really not going to like such and such. Your intuition can't do that. It's a different thing. So the clear and present danger that rabbit's intuition is going nuts right now,
Right.
and the wolf is enjoying the power
Mhm.
play.
Right. So anything you learn
Naughty
today, this is
wolf.
about the primordial self. Yeah. This is about
Mhm.
the deepest roots of you.
Trusting your basic instincts
Yeah. Yeah.
because they're there
He's
for a
nodding.
reason.
He's nodding.
Uh-huh.
Oh,
Those instincts are there for a reason. Like they're what kept you alive. And when we move away from them, we end up with problems.
so this is a deeper. Okay, so this episode is obviously a deeper meaning to the episode. So because I kind of had a discussion today, but I have this discussion often about uh, being self-aware takes a lot of self-awareness. And we've kind of
It's
touched back and forth on this, right? It's not just the surf. Like, if you think you've dug deep enough, there's probably still other layers to look into because the way we're used to going through life, it's a lot of it is surface level. We don't
Mhm.
think of the next meaning of something, or we don't think of why, what the real motivation behind things are a lot of the times. So people can do 5D chess on us and we'll get lost because we don't know. We're not even thinking. Well, okay, our perfect example, right? We didn't think things would move as fast as they did because the way we thought about the situation was it would take some time because we figured no one would go that fast because that would make no sense. Everything will just crumble. Like that's not how you maintain something. Well, if you look at it from the perspective of not wanting to maintain something, then this makes perfect sense. But again, our bias has gotten away so that we didn't go deeper in our predicting what could happen.
You're talking politically right now, aren't you?
But yes, politically,
Yeah.
because
So
it's an example we've already given on the show about biases and how they affect things. Well, your biases are
mhm.
not deep rooted. I mean, you have built-in things as a species, right? You're not going to try to breathe underwater because you can't breathe under it, certain built-in things. But our social behaviors, a lot of it, we have a certain guideline, but we do have to go past those guidelines, or those guides that we have built into us are therefore our social biases. We have to get past them to see the true meaning of things.
Well, we have to have certain things that we take
Mm.
as being true. There has to be a fair amount of that because otherwise you're having to constantly think all day
Yes,
and you
you have to
don't do
start somewhere.
anything. You don't do anything and you get run over by the next bus, right?
Mm.
Because you're too busy thinking about things that need to be on automatic. So we have this huge repertoire and being social animals in a very complex environment. I mean, this is
Mm.
way more complex than sitting around a campfire and trying to decide who's going to go out and get the saber-toothed tiger. This is way more complex and it's multi-layered and we don't really know what to accept as really being the wolf and being the
Right.
wolf's shadow,
Mm-hmm.
right? What's really to be afraid of? And so we spend a lot of time focusing on all the things that stress us out and focusing on all the struggle, right? You're fighting
Right.
up that river for what? You don't even know. Like, what's the point in going back up? Unless you're a salmon, there is no point to this,
Right.
right? So, check for your scales. But if you're not a salmon, then stop doing the struggle up the river and maybe look at what aspects are you buying into that make you struggle?
Mm.
Because the more awareness and openness you have, the more open you are to practice your magic. You
Yeah.
can't do it from a place of mud, right? I'm getting this really deep mud,
Mm.
squelchy kind of pulls your boots off kind of mud.
Right.
And you can't focus on spiritual things from that place. So where are you putting yourself in the mud?
So yes, it, this is okay. Yeah, this is a lesson in connecting to your magic. You just hit it because
And being available for it,
right,
right?
because Grandfather Wolf just like did an excited dance when you said that. So there you go. And
Uh-huh.
because it's true. We have brought ourselves far removed from the magic. And if you remember several episodes ago, Hecate said, "Welcome to the primordial magic."
Yes. Yeah.
So he's reconfirming that idea of this is primordial magic that's showing up. This is why, like, because we've had this discussion and we've off like outside the podcast and a little bit on the podcast. And I kind of expanded it when I was on a podcast last week. It'll come out in a few days, I think. But we discussed the idea of what to do, how to focus. Like you had offered a suggestion for my mother because she was Catholic to go with the Catholic stuff, the saints and that. Well, I kind of went deeper on the podcast, even like, well, I think I joked here, right? We said, I said, oh, the order of the Jedi Knight is going to increase
Mhm.
because of all the people, right? But I also went to the point of like, I don't even care if you call in the power of Pikachu to get something done because I can't think
Right.
of the names of the really powerful Pokemon because it's not wasn't my scene, but
But that's the thing is it doesn't matter.
mm,
It's not important.
right.
Just so long as it works for you. And that's absolutely put a pin in that if you're listening to the podcast that we do things our way,
Mm-hmm.
and Danielle does things that are a bit different to the way I do them. And then we do certain things that we connect on. And all of that's great. It all works where and when it needs to, but it doesn't look the same. And that's, I think, key. We kind of want to conform, belong to a group, and there is some merit to that, depending on why you're doing it. Like I'm in a coven.
Right.
There's merit to that. There is power in a circle. There's a lot that a group can do that's different to a person doing it on their own. Note I said different and not better.
Right.
Um, but that's not for everybody, and it wasn't for me for a very, very, very long time. So, again, things change, right? And you let go of the idea that I always do things solo. Well,
Mm,
okay, but that was then. What's now?
right. Well, that's it. And okay, he just nudged me in the way that dogs nudge, the way canines nudge people. And it's about what is it about? Again, primordial magic. So this message of whatever it takes for you to connect. No, like, so one of the reasons why the idea of me using my indigenous ancestry as a focus for earth magic is because I always had a big thing for like indigenous magic. Doesn't matter if it's necessarily from, Turtle Island or anywhere else in the world. Like not the, magic refined through the years and religions and stuff like that, but the actual almost folk magic, if you will, the stuff that comes up from working with the land and being connected to it, the things that show up from that, rather than years of study, and added philosophies, and that is the best way I can think to explain it. So for me, the ideas of like animism, the earth is alive, all those things, all the things in it are alive, the basic fundamental elements, animal spirits, plant spirits, that appeals to me, and that's found in a lot of cultures that, for lack of a better word, aren't as sophisticated and as civilized. Although that's not the best wording. It's just I'm trying to invoke an imagery of a developed civilization versus a agrarian, no, whatever, one that's still,
Agricultural?
yes, yes, or agrarian or whatever the word is that matches.
Okay. Uh-huh.
But versus people who have isolated themselves, like versus people who have isolated themselves from nature, and the people who still embrace nature. And I side with magic on the embracing nature side.
Which really is Well, that's kind of the path because if you're trying to do it through a concrete jungle,
Mhm,
it's possible, but you're going through some layers that are illusionary. You know, that they're not the stuff that we think is important on this planet
mhm,
right now is twaddle. Like it's not important. It's it's a big deal in that it affects our everyday being, but
mhm.
it's an illusion. It's not something that's there forever. And
Right.
you can even look back, like if you want to look at political things, pick a country, right? Any of them, not just the US, but you can see where it came from. You can see how this became a thing, the situation you're in right now. It didn't suddenly appear out of the ether, right? It was building for a long time, not necessarily visible because we didn't expect to see it. And I
Right.
think that's a big key piece here when you're working in the spiritual realm too, is what are you missing because you don't expect to see it?
Right.
You're stuck on one path, one idea, and it can only be this way. What are you missing? There's stuff there that you could work with that could enhance your experience and you could enhance that spiritual aspect by interacting and by working with it. But if you're so focused on, making sure the house is clean today or buying whatever it is you had on your list to buy, like,
Right.
physical, materialistic things, they have a place simply because this is where we live, but they don't have the place that we typically give it, which is
Mhm.
high priority.
Right.
It doesn't matter if you have a fancy car or if you have a car that's got four wheels and a steering wheel and it gets you from A to
Right.
B. It doesn't actually matter. Nobody cares. And if they do, well, that person is stuck in a very superficial space. So is that who you want to impress? Like, let's just put all that down for a minute and leave the city, take your shoes off, and head into that primordial forest,
Mhm.
right? Just go for a walk, connecting with that ground, with the elements around you. Now, how do you feel? Now, what's coming? And it's very, very different because you're not getting all this struggle stuff thrown at you.
Right.
Concrete jungles are a big struggle bus. No,
Yeah.
that's how they're built and that's how they're designed.
Yes. I was gonna say, so he's howling right now, as in calling. I, I get the word community.
Mhm. Yeah, and community can look however it looks. Just like, okay, I'm going to bring families into this now. We started
Yeah.
with filial, da da da, but families can also look like one parent, two dads, two
Right.
moms, step
Yes.
parents. There's all kinds of configurations, and you can have adopted kids, and you can have biological kids, and some might have special needs, and some don't. And the thing is, all of those are the community. They are the family. They are what you have there, and none of them are less than you. So, given that none of them are less than you, what can you now access in this community? What can you now do? Shedding all that need to have a hierarchy. What now is possible?
Yes. Well, that's the thing, right? Because I'm getting so obviously you can't do it because podcast is going to be recorded, then put out, and then people will listen to the podcast whenever they want to listen to it. But what he's showing me is people holding hands, like in a big circle,
Hmm.
as in working on a common goal. There's howling because
Hmm.
wolf, right? And wolves, that's how they get their community together. We sing, so it's not much different. As a side note, the only way I can hit high notes, a lot of high notes, is by pretending to be a wolf howling. So
Okay.
there's that. But okay, so this ties back to basically the work we've been doing. in preparation for 2027, this whole year being yourself. And uh, so this is about people coming together and working together in their magic. So when you say
Mm.
and you say working together and doing this is the time for people to connect as well. Like you're being yourself and you're being true to who you are, but and you work like our whole thing on community that we did this season, was that you don't necessarily have to go out and introduce yourself to everyone to be in a community, but that your work is aligned and therefore the byproduct of everyone's work works together or you know feeds each other's work.
Hmm. And depending on how strongly you feel about what you're doing, um, and how much you're called, you
Hmm.
might want to be in a coven,
Yeah.
and you could set one up. You don't have to join somebody else's. You can create one if that speaks to you, if that's
Right.
something that you want to do. Or it can be a community that's not named as a coven and you're not particularly working together at the same time, like in the same space,
But
but
yeah.
you're all pulling in the same direction.
Yeah. So I think I'll sum this up like this because it works with what you're saying. So a community doesn't have to be specifically people talking to each other and integrating to each other because the byproducts will help each other of each other's work. But it's recommended still that you do actually go out and talk to other people doing their magical work and still actually building what you would expect as a traditional community if you can. Yes. So the first part is the do what you need to do. If you can't get into a community, don't worry about it. Your community will build itself through the byproduct of your work. But the preference is still if you can build a community, build a community.
And what comes to mind for me is sometimes your community, which we've alluded to a couple of times already in the podcast, your community is already there. You're in
Mhm.
it, you're looking at it, but you're not expecting to see it.
Right.
You're seeing a different aspect of those people. The number of people that I've known for some time, and then I'll say something to just kind of poke a little bit.
Right.
And I get a response that says, "Oh, so you do witchcraft too?"
Mm.
And it can be very interesting to get those responses. Now, sometimes it's more of a wish than a reality that the person does it, but that's okay. They're thinking about it. So that's still cool. But if you don't look for them, you might not see them and they could be right under your nose.
Yes. Well, that's part of the howling, right? The howling is, because the wolves aren't inside of each other when they're howling.
Right.
So they call out to see is anyone else there, and then they get the response to let them know where other people are. So yeah, don't let not having a community stop you because again, the byproducts of your work will go on and work with other people's byproducts. But do not run away from having an actual community. But don't
Yeah.
stop just because you don't have one that's obvious to you.
Right. But look around. I
Yeah.
mean, really, I'm getting a lot of stop what you're doing, put everything down,
Mm.
take your shoes off, and just consider what else is happening, what else is around you, because we can only see so much, right? We can only access so much from our environment. And this is going into neuroscience for a second. It's your reticular activating system. This is the part of the brain that says, okay, you're interested in this, we'll focus on this. You like
Right.
that, we'll focus on that. This is important to you, let's focus on that too. And it gives you those things. All the other things that are around you are ignored because you cannot focus on everything. It's impossible. We don't have the capacity to do that. So it's not anything wrong, but once you know that that's the case and that exists, you can now choose differently.
Hmm.
What would you like to focus on instead of the struggle, instead of fighting up the stream, instead of looking for how your life is tough? How can you look for the things that would make it more interesting or enriched? And if you're listening to this podcast, chances are that's something magical or spiritual.
Right.
It's not a Pollyanna thing. I'm not saying everything's fine so long as you look over here and don't look at the,
Yeah.
the dark sludge over there. No, no,
Yeah.
the dark sludge is still there, but if you keep paying attention to it, you're going to end up in it.
Yeah.
So, knowing that that's there, what else would you like to pay attention to now? It doesn't mean you can't pay attention to the things that are important to you. So if that's working with magic, if
Hmm.
that's discovering more about yourself and how you relate to spiritual, physical, all the things in your environment, then I think that's kind of a worthy pursuit, right? Otherwise, why are we here, really?
Yeah.
You're not here to pay taxes. You're not here to go work for somebody else and make them money. That is
Right.
that is not our purpose in life. You get taught that simply because it's convenient,
Yeah.
but that is not, and it's not important how big your house is or how fancy your car is or if you have a car. None of those things actually matter. We get distracted by them. So
Yeah.
your focus goes on the stuff that doesn't help, doesn't move anywhere. It's a dead end. But if you sort of look differently and start looking into that primordial forest, now there are things in there.
Yes.
What is in there? What would you like to go find? If you weren't afraid of it, what would it be? What could you go do?
He's sipping at herbs, at plants.
Mm.
Yeah. Yeah. So I
Nature
guess I
can be
can't.
very healing.
Yeah. That's actually important. Listeners, take note of what Michaela just said. Nature can be
Mhm.
healing. Yeah. See, he's nodding his head, tongue out to the side thing there, and showing his pleasure at that answer.
Mhm.
This is an interesting experience to have a spirit that's hasn't really talked to people in a while, and
We
that
got like a
um,
three-way conversation going on here.
yeah, because everything is basically visuals and prodding, and but yeah, no, yeah, it's the nature is healing. Do your work, and if you can be in a group, be in a group. But know that will still be work. Well, no, I don't even need that part. Those three bit that
Mhm.
basic is there. Do your work, and if it ends up you can be in a group, be in a group doing your work.
Mm. I'd say be open. Be
Yeah.
open to the idea, even if you've not done it before. I speak from personal example here.
Yes. But that's kind of a this is kind of a we'll go conspiratorial for now because this may not actually be conspiratorial. I don't know. So the idea of pushing AI and pushing the creation of robots is because when you have the quote unquote ruling class, maintaining a population that you need to do work is difficult. Keeping down rebellions, keeping from people from straying from their work is difficult. You can like invent TV and keep people distracted. You can give them phones and keep them distracted. But once uh, they grow enough and become smart enough that they realize they don't need to work for you anymore, they become hard to control. And so you build AI and you build machines so that you can reduce the amount of people you need. And then you kind of slowly, if you will, I'm not going to specify a real pace because I have no idea, get rid of people you don't need. Take that wording however
Or
you'd like.
Or you can dumb down the population by burning books and destroying education departments and
Yeah.
so on, and that'll do the trick too.
Mm-hmm.
Because ill-informed, non-informed people are also easy to control because you just say something sensational and they'll go off and run with it because they don't know not to, and that's what's happening right now. There's a lot of that and the sensationalism and so on. We get very caught off guard by the shiny, the squirrel that runs
Yes.
past.
Mm-hmm.
We get very caught off guard by this. And I think social media and internet generally has primed us to be that way. Like people who did not have ADHD before, sure as hell have got it now. And people who may not have had it have got it now because it's learned. It can be learned, and you find much more difficulty paying attention in people now than you did 30
Mm.
years ago, for example, because what we expected from the environment and what we tapped into was different. So if you think about how internet has rewired our brains, and it has, and you can see this on
Mm.
scans and so on, and you can just
Right.
see it in people's behavior. So that's taken as a fact, right? We can
Mm.
see it, it's tangible. Well, just think about if you go the opposite direction and you take away all that wiring in to the internet, which is, as we know, full of dishonesty, lies, manipulations, and so on. That's its best purpose, I think. So you go the opposite direction and you walk into that primordial forest. And now, what have you got now? Ooh, it gets kind of noisy. There's so much silence.
Mm.
And then you start to hear all the sounds that you didn't pay attention to before. And it hits on a different level. And the pace is different. Anybody that's ever done a meditation retreat, for example, oh, holy smokes. The start of one of those things can be really tough, particularly if it's a no speaking environment where you literally just, you're with your own thoughts.
Mm.
And you might go for nature walks and you sit and meditate and you sit in a big room full of people and you all eat, but you're not talking.
Right.
There's there's a void there of noise. There's no noise. So now your mind has to do something else.
Yeah.
It has to look for a different path. And that's kind of the point is to who are you when you're quiet? What are you
Yeah.
in touch with? What's important to you? Do you even know? And I think until you've spent some time on your own, and ideally in a non-talking environment, even if it's for an hour, you can get a lot, right?
Hmm.
You don't have to go anywhere fancy for that. But it gives a different perspective. And I have known people like my mom, for example, was one person who could not stand silence. She could not. And so if somebody wasn't talking, she'd be humming or singing, or she'd be doing something to fill the silence. And that was a person who was not happy to be with her own thoughts. So if that's you, why? What are you thinking that's so awful? And wouldn't it be nicer to kind of fix that, work on that, change it a little bit, look for something that is enriching rather than meaningless noise?
Yeah. It's funny. This brings me back to I think I'd mentioned on the podcast before, but there was a power outage, and I was at my aunt and uncle's place, and the power was out, but they had a heater, a gas heater, but it didn't need electricity to run and heat, so it was warm and all the lights were out. There was no electronic noise or anything like that, and I was just like, oh my God, this is awesome. And then when the power came on, right, I could feel everything just tighten up, and it's funny
Mhm.
because they were like, "Oh, good, the power's back on," and I'm like, "No, I was loving this. This is so awesome. Everything was so still. My body was so relaxed."
Mhm. There's no stress. Well, there doesn't need to be anyway, because all the things that push on your senses aren't there.
Well, that's the thing, right?
How
Yeah,
cool is that?
yeah. My senses were actually able to just sit there and take in what was real, for lack of a better way of putting that. Like
Right.
anyone who, if you meditate or you have any kind of magical connection to the world, it's like there's just the silence has like its charm, especially when
Hmm.
it's dark. When it's nighttime, there's nothing else going on. There's no noises, and you just sit there. There's like just it's an amazing time. And then everything turned on, and I was just like, "Damn it!"
Right. That can be disappointing
Yeah,
because if you've got heat, that's pretty much what you need, right?
right. Yeah, I wasn't cold. I wasn't shivering, but I was like warm and able to take in everything.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah. So just look how far we've come, even in a couple of generations, with the expectation that there's internet all the time, there's, noise, there's electricity, there's something happening
Yeah.
all the time. Television back in the day, centuries ago now, used to turn off at 10 o'clock at night. That would be the end of programming. And that was it, right? Like everybody's gone to bed if they haven't already.
Hmm.
And you didn't expect to be entertained all night long. But how many people have televisions in their bedrooms? And I got to tell you, if you have a TV in your bedroom, you are hitting yourself with an awful lot of sort of Wi-Fi. The vibrations that you
Yeah.
can't see them, but they're there. You can feel them. If ever you go past an electric pylon within 100 feet of the thing, you feel it. That
Hmm.
thing's pulsing through you. Well, you've got that on a level when you have electrical things in the bedroom, particularly TVs.
Yeah.
Those things they're always on alert, right? They're always around. And AIs, a lot of us have AIs in the house. We
Mhm.
do. We have AI all over the place. And its main purpose is to tell us the weather and to play music.
Right.
But every now and then I'm reminded, oh, yes, that thing's always listening.
Yeah.
Because the other morning when I woke up, I was not rested. I'd had a lot of very intense dreams and I was quite exhausted. And I was muttering darkly about it. And then this
Hmm.
voice said, I have a rejuvenating morning meditation. Would you like me to play it? And I was, whoa, I was not talking to you. But,
Right.
that's the fact that I didn't run out of the house screaming tells you, we're used to this level of invasion
Yep.
as being normal. Well, if you think of turning all of that off, wow, what's there? Then that's like going into a whole other planet. Not bother looking for Mars. You got it right here. Let's turn the electricity off for a bit and see what you've got.
Mm. You know, when you mentioned dreams, this is probably an opportune moment to, well, there's two things. One, to continue what you were just saying. I want to say last night, so I had to get up early today. So the minute it got dark outside, I turned the lights off. I was still like doing stuff, but I had the lights off because I knew by the time I wanted to go to bed, I was going to be turned off. Like, because the lights keep thinking, makes you think it's the daytime, especially that one wavelength of blue, whatever it is.
Yeah, the blue light.
Right. So I had all the lights off and I just knew it. I could feel myself, even though I had like the TV on, I could feel myself just starting to wind down. Like I could feel my body relaxing. So by the time I went to bed, it was like out. But that's just with turning the lights off and not anything else. Like just that alone.
You try it and not have the TV on as well.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think you'll find a whole other level of experience because the
Right.
TV is
Well,
quite an interference.
yeah. But just to give people even just that idea that even if you just turn the lights off at
Mhm.
night, you'll feel your body start to come down and relax and be ready. But now, so what I want to jump into is dreams because, as I told Michaela and I mentioned on the podcast, right? Since we did the episode about the Earth Mothers, it's just been one thing after another. Spirit showing up, dreams. I had a couple of nights there where I don't really remember my dreams, but not not last night, but the night before, I had nightmares, just nightmares. But right, lots of abandonment stuff, some death. But then I woke up, I had to go to the washroom, went to the washroom, came back, went back to bed, and when I dreamt again, it was yeah, I got it. I have a whole of it. I was like powerful within myself when I went back to bed. Everything that had preceded it, I had somehow dealt with for some reason. I had took it for what it was. When I went back to sleep, my brain went, yeah, okay, this is what it is. This is what we're doing. And then kind of I ended the dream with of an image of being like a powerful wizard. So it was like, and I've been getting that kind of stuff, even if it starts off bad. There's always the coming to understanding and then feeling very powerful when it's over.
Mhm.
So, and I'm
Well,
hoping people are experiencing this themselves right now. Go ahead.
destruction comes before rebirth,
Yeah.
right? And in in Storyland, the phoenix is the perfect example.
Hmm.
It rises from the fire of itself. It's not some random fire that's like, oh, hey, there's a fire. I think I'll become a phoenix
Right.
now. No, no, no. This is the phoenix is on fire,
Yeah.
and a new phoenix rises up from that. And in Jungian psychology, you've got the death of ego,
Hmm.
which is literally necessary before you can grow into a new stage. It doesn't mean bad things. In Western society, we have a really poor grasp of death and what it means and what people need to do around it and how it can be interpreted. Like we just think it's a very literal end of everything. That's it. Bad news. Not good. And let's not talk about it or it might find us kind of thing. Newsflash, nobody escapes that. But during life, there are also these mini deaths that you go through of who you were in order to become the next version of you. That's a growth thing. It's good. But as a society, we have gone away from this very natural process
Right.
and this very natural understanding, and people get a little freaked out about it. I've noticed in social media, if somebody talks about a person dying, they almost inevitably say, so and so passed.
Mm.
Maybe, but what's wrong with the word dying? Is it too hard to look at? And I think people find it so. But this is an area like if you want to dive into some serious magic here and really learn some things about yourself and about the spiritual world, death is a great direction to go look at. There's so much there. And like I said, we typically don't have a very good response to it. Now, in the Jewish faith, yes, there's a whole
Mm.
lot that's planned out for that. Everybody knows exactly what they're going to be doing and when and how and why. And there's even prescribed prayers and so on that
Hmm.
you go through. There is an understanding of what it all means. An understanding. I'm not saying it's the correct one. I'm just saying it works for this group.
Right.
And it's been there for centuries, right? But everybody knows what to do and when. But typically in Western society, that is missing. But there's a whole lot of magic to be had in getting in touch with your ancestors, for example.
Right.
And we talk about cycle breaking these days. It's a very popular thing, and I'm totally here for that. We
Hmm.
have a lot of trauma cycles that need to go away,
Right.
but there's also ancestral healing, there's ancestral cycles. And if you've got a bad view of some of your ancestors, well, okay, that's another one I would say. Make like the wolf and the rabbit.
Hmm.
Look into it. Go into that, not away from it, and
Right.
see what's really there. Because that's just your perception, right?
Right.
It's maybe what you've been told, but who told the teller?
Yeah. Hmm. You know what? Grandfather Wolf is done. He's done. So if there's anything we want to continue talking about, that's up to us, but he's done.
Right.
He's made his peace. I mean, so we should recap his piece, right? Again, the adding to the welcome to the primordial magic, go into the deepest depths of who you are. That's the primordial forest. The underground, obviously, go into your fears and see really what's underneath the hood. And then the river, right? Which is don't fight things you don't have to fight. I'm still not completely figured out on the rabbit and the wolf staring each other down thing, but that's
I
me.
think there's a lot of ways that could go, that particular image. You're just because you're small doesn't mean you don't have power, because while the rabbit's staring at the wolf's not doing anything.
Right.
You could interpret it that way. Or it could be facing your fears. It could be how paralyzed are you by staring at your fears and not able to see other things around. And I'm not offering any of those as a particular interpretation. I'm just saying they come to mind as possibles.
But yeah, because you can look at it, right? The rabbit is trying to figure out what to do with its power.
Right?
Because it
Well,
is loaded like a spring, right? It's ready to move. It's just not sure where to go with what it has.
or whether it's a good idea to go.
Right. It just hasn't chosen an action yet or decided on taking an action.
There you go. I think that's an important piece is the indecision. The where are you stuck not owning your decision and just making a choice?
Hmm.
Go do the thing, whatever it is. It could be one of the things that we've suggested over the weeks, months
Yeah.
even, or
Mhm.
not. It could be something completely different, but it's probably not what you've been doing.
Yeah. But I think this is pretty interesting because, like, okay, so we got the imagery. So the metaphors of the imagery to give you something to ponder. So you listening, you've heard me describe the scenarios because, yeah, because just looking at the perspective of the rabbit crouching down, even though it's afraid, it's ready to act. It has everything prepped to go to act, but it's deciding on whether to act or not. So that's a whole metaphor right there that I didn't even consider in that moment because I'm looking at it. What is he trying to say from his perspective? Because he's the wolf scaring the rabbit. So, but yes, that's that extra section I didn't think about.
Oh. And then, we don't know. Does the rabbit assume that the wolf has the power? Or does the rabbit think it's in charge by not moving? The wolf can't see me, kind of thing.
Here's that.
Like, we don't know because you can only look at it from your perspective.
Yes.
But know that there are other perspectives. There are other truths. There are other ways to look at something, and they can all be equally valid. So that's not meant to sound vapid. That's more a case of what else is possible. It's one of my
Yeah.
favorite things. I say that a lot, right? What else is possible? What else could you do? Like, let's open it up.
But
Let's
that,
go
but
play in a new field.
yeah, it's actually a common way for spirits to communicate, right? And if you look at if you do, oracle cards, tarot cards, rune stones, whatever, you draw your inspiration from the image that's given to you, right? Because like I
Hmm.
said, I've been for weeks missing out on the idea of Earth, pentacle equals Earth, or coins, whichever it is in your deck.
Hmm.
But it represents Earth, and I didn't think to connect it to Earth magic, and yet that's what it was referring. There you go, Frenchman. That's what it was referring to is
And
Earth magic.
that's another way of saying what I was saying earlier on about you're looking at something but not seeing all the other things
Yeah,
around it, right? So you're looking at your card a certain way, expecting it to be a certain way, and missing all the other things that are possible for that. And every time we discover something, like, oh, hey, I hadn't thought of it this way, I could look at it this way. That doesn't mean you've got it now.
mm,
That just means you have that thing now, and there's probably like 1,000 more,
right.
and you're not going to get through them all in your lifetime, probably. And that doesn't matter. But to be curious and always looking, I think, is important.
Yeah,
And not to think, well, I've done this thing, so I've arrived now. No, we don't arrive. That's not what happens on this planet. It's not how it
right.
works.
Yeah,
We're
what I feel
always
like
seeking.
adding, yeah, what I feel like adding to what you're saying is that so look until you understand you found the answer. I don't know how to word that any other different way because you don't want because you can look at layers and layers and layers and interpretations until you die. Like you could spend the rest of your life interpreting one image and look at the different possibilities. Even, and if we look at use a painting as you can look at the brush strokes. You can go, oh, this brush stroke, well, it invokes this, or this sort of tells me about the artist, and because it's done this way and this given this lighting, this is what the artist is trying to say about this element. And you could spend a whole career, doing this. So knowing when you've hit the answer you need is also important.
And that was an important way of saying it. When you've hit the answer you need,
Yeah,
that's the key. I would underline that bit because you don't know if it's the ultimate answer to life, the universe, and everything, because we don't have one of those. It's not a one answer. There's many, many things. It depends on what you're looking at and why. Where are you coming from and what do you want to do with it? So your answer is always going to be it depends. So finding the one that you need, that's the key.
Right.
You
Well,
got it right there.
and it makes me think of it's the difference between a dictionary definition, a paper, a thesis paper, an encyclopedia entry, or a whole discipline, academic discipline. You can do all of those. You can take one subject and you can each have one of those. Sometimes you just need the dictionary definition and you're done. Sometimes, hey, maybe you're going to go all the way and this is your discipline for whatever your career is, the length of your career. Just knowing when
Yeah.
to stop is important as well as knowing to look. So when you hit the answer that you need, is knowing
Mhm.
to then take that and move on to the next thing and take it to where it needs to go.
Yes. Yep. That's it.
And you know what? So okay, so grandfather Wolf had checked out of the podcast. He was just sitting there doing the dog laying on the side thing.
Mhm.
But when I said, yeah, I think that's when you said when we did that kind of, yeah, that's it. It was kind of like kind of put the paw up and go, yeah, you got it.
Mhm.
I think anything beyond this is beating a dead horse. There's the
Which the horse wouldn't like.
right. That's right. So yeah, so we'll remember that imagery. So we'll go just I just want to recap the imagery, right? So the primordial forest, the dark underground. So in this case, it was grandfather wolf using itself in the imagery. So the wolf trying to go against the stream of the river, trying to go against the current of the river, and well, struggling. And then we went with the rabbit facing off against the wolf, or at least trying to figure out what to do with itself in that situation, in that scary situation. So contemplate those images. We pulled stuff out of it. We described it. But since it was given, and hey, like I want like I think when I market this podcast, I vastly underplay it. And one of the things I underplay is the fact that there's spirits producing these episodes. Like I don't write that down in any of my descriptions of the podcast, or sometimes when I describe the episode, like the first time a dragon came on, I said, well, this is, but I don't describe this podcast as, hey, like there's spirits coming in, giving you the content. And this is a spirit that hasn't been in contact with human beings in a long time. So it's giving you just it's communicating primordially. I just kind of want the listeners to really like kind of get the depth of what they're looking at in this podcast or what they're getting in this podcast. Because like I said, I play it down because this is my life. So I'm used to dealing with spirits and I'm used to dealing with some that are old and some that don't interact a long time. But this is like I said, it forgot how to show up as a wolf to a human being. So it's like this is old. This is this has been away from human beings for a while as well. So I just want people to kind of consider that. Since I'm getting to the point where I don't care if people think I'm crazy anymore, so I'm just
Well, that's good.
right. So I'm just laying down that this is something to really be thought about, to really like contemplate. Like you're into primordial magics, like Hecate said, and we're probably going to have some more primordial spirits show up.
I would think. I mean, this is definitely the time of Lilith, so you don't get more primordial than Lilith, I
Yeah.
would say.
So I guess now you really have to listen to the podcast because now it's like, oh shit, primordial spirits. What does that mean? What's that going to look like?
Mhm.
So there you go, people. And on that note, I'm Daniel Dubois.
I'm Michaela Gaffinstone.
Until next time.
Until next time.